All right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show, your one-stop shop for all things Commanders. It's a misery Monday, but that's okay. We will carry on. Our good buddy Cakes from the Junkies is on. What's up, brother? How you doing?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, one of my favorite returning guests.
Absolutely.
Cakes, I know you got the MGM hat on there. I was wondering, the season started at 7-2. They're at 7-5. What is the poker equivalent to what's happened this season?
Ooh, that's a good one. The poker equivalent. I guess it's like if you say you have like three of a kind in the tournament and you get about 40% of your stack wiped out when somebody shows up with, I don't know, a flush or a straight full house or straight or something to beat your three of a kind. Like it's not the end of the road, but it's definitely, you definitely have less chips and less maneuverability than you did before, less wiggle room. I guess that's the easiest way to equate what's happened. But look, I mean, nobody if you asked any of us before the season started, will this team be 7-2 at any point? I would have said no, even though like my wacky prediction was for 10 wins, I think preseason. Still, in your heart of hearts, you're not going to pick this team to win 7 of their first 9 games, no matter how well Jaden played out of the gate. So there's been some regression. They faced some really tough teams in Philly and Pittsburgh. They just let one slip away yesterday at home that they should have won. Like Dallas was doing everything within their very limited powers to just gift wrap balls in perfect scenarios and good field position, and the Commanders just couldn't capitalize on it. They couldn't build a big lead and run away from a bad team, and they let a bad team hang around. And when you let bad teams hang around, bad things can tend to happen. And we all saw how that unfolded yesterday.
George, I went back and looked. It's hard to realize until you go back and look at some of the numbers, just how flawlessly they played kind of on that 7-2 train. And I mean, when you think about it, like all the bounces kind of went their ways, all 3 phases of the game. The defense came along slowly, but special teams was incredible the first 8-9 games of the season. I don't know that it's a regression. I mean, by definition, they are having a regression, but it feels more like they're just coming back down to earth a little bit. And as a fan base, we weren't ready for it because we were happy being way up in the clouds. This is more the team I think that we thought they were. It's just brutal that it happened against a team with Cooper Rush. Like that wasn't the Dak Prescott Cowboys yesterday. So I know in the Commanders fan base today, there's a lot of talk about regression. I think they're evening out more than anything else.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what ended up happening was I think Mitch Tisher has been talking about sugar high, right? We were 7-2. We got caught up in that sugar high of just being so successful early on, and Adam Peters and this new era of Dan Quinn. We were very optimistic what the team was looking like. But as Cakes alluded to, 7-2 is very optimistic. That's elite in the NFL. That's hard to come by. And I think that was just a perfect mixture of what was happening throughout the year. I think losing the last 3 games were devastating. But as we know, the Steelers and the Eagles are actually really good teams. The backbreaker was the Cowboys game. This is the type of loss that unfortunately we've kind of seen over the years. Like we thought we were moving away from that with Ron Rivera. With Ron Rivera and previous coaches in previous years. We thought we just kind of hammer a team that was below us, and we were above. But unfortunately, we played down to our level. It's had a bad game, and it leaves a bad taste in our mouth. So we're kind of in a weird spot now. Like, are we really moving forward? Are we actually going to be? Are we a different team? And are we going to turn things around by the end of the year? Because we saw things flame out in previous years, and we do have that PTSD in our DC DNA right now. So hopefully we move away from it.
And I think it hurt too that like the Commanders had a significant rest advantage having played on Thursday,
Absolutely.
having that extra time. Cowboys had played the primetime game, Monday night game. Like it was all like aligned perfectly for the Commanders to beat them at home. And for the first time in a long time, like I wasn't at the stadium, but a lot of people were saying there aren't nearly as many Dallas fans in the stadium as there have been in previous years. And I think it's due to the fact that the Commanders are up, Dallas is down. The Dallas fans don't want to show up for a 3 or 4 win team. And I don't blame them. That's just kind of human nature. So it was all set up for them like 2 weeks before the bye, get a division win at home, and it's just a lost opportunity.
Let me jump in on that line, Doug. I was actually at the game yesterday, and for the first time in a very long time, it was about like 70-30 Commanders Cowboys fans. Typically, it's 60-40 Cowboys fans overrunning them. It was the other way around. And I got a question for you to follow up with that, Keeks. So just going along with that, I feel like the team was anticipating a event, right? Jay-Z was in the building. We saw Joe Gibbs in the house. Robert Griffin III came by. It was, helicopters flying over the stadium. It was all this aura and all this beautiful things going into the game. Does this loss affect the story of the season? Because there's so much optimism going into the year. Like, hey, we're turning things around. Things are better now. Does this damage things long term, or was this kind of like a little blip on the radar, in your opinion?
I just think it's more of a bump in the road for a team that was ahead of schedule wins wise. So, like after building that 7 out of 9 cushion, they're just unfortunately giving a few back here. And I mean, I don't want to blame it on the late bye, but I talked about it on the Junkies show today. Like having a bye in week 14 is crazy. Like I'm no schedule maven or expert by any means. I'm not an expert really in anything, but I know that when you give some teams buys in like week 6 and another team doesn't get a bye until week 14, like every team is just beat up. We've seen all the injuries that teams have faced and the adversity that they're facing. When you don't have a bye until week 14, that takes a mental and physical toll on these guys. They need a quick reset. They need a week off. They need some time away to kind of gather for that last home stretch. They've got one game left before the bye, and hopefully they're able to, muster up enough to beat the Titans. But I've learned my lesson. I'm not guaranteeing any sort of wins. I'm out of that business.
I was going to say,
enough of the Commander fan base is upset with me. I don't need to guarantee any more wins going forward. And look, the Titans are coming off a road win against Houston. They're not a pushover. Their offense is kind of laughable because Will Levis gets sacked all the time. But he's finding his way a little bit. Now he's going to cough the ball up. He's going to make mistakes. But make no mistake about this. Their defense,
very good.
Even without L'Jarius Sneed, who hasn't played like in the last 3 or 4 weeks, maybe longer, that defense is fearsome. Like they're holding teams to like 276 total yards per game. They'll let you score on them, but it's hard to move the ball on that team. So, and any Commanders fans who are out there thinking this is just a pushover win, I think they're in for a rude awakening this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, the guys from the Bergen DT Gear group are in the chat. They mentioned 3 weeks now, week 14, 3 years for the week 14 bye now, which is insane. Yeah. Also, they wanted to remind you that it was all your fault that we lost the game. I'm sure the callers were real nice to you this morning, Kicks.
Oh, they were great. They're you know how irrational the HTTC crowd could be. Yeah, they were none too happy.
And I don't know, you were there, George. On TV, the RG3 orange coat cowboy hat shtick came off real shticky. Did it feel like that when he was there? Because it was like, bro, come on, don't use this for a photo op.
I think RG3, that's his thing, man. He likes to get the attention on him. He likes to kind of bring things up. I mean, I'm not trying to criticize him, but that's his deal. And it was very sticky. He basically was standing right in front of my seats. I sit in 109 next to Chris Bryant, Keith, all those guys right by the players' tunnel. So I saw RG3 pregame, and I saw that burgundy coat. It's almost like the burnt orange, the University of Texas wears with that cowboy hat. And I'm like, why is he wearing a Cowboys hat going into the Dallas Cowboys game? What's going on? Like, I was awkward.
And he went to Baylor.
Yeah, definitely. That's another added component to it. So I don't know if you guys saw the actual breakdown. What happened was he took off the hat, threw it on the ground, stepped on the cowboy hat, and kind of squished it to the side, like, the Cowboys are going to die or whatever, and they shake the flag, which I thought was okay. That's like, that's better than I thought was going to happen. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I did like was later on, they brought him back for a question and answer session during a TV timeout. They were asking him all sorts of things about, like, the 2012 playoff run, so on and so forth. And what ended up happening, he took off his shirt. I don't know if you guys saw this on TV. He took off his shirt. He had a Jaden Daniels jersey underneath it. He's like, I'm rooting for this guy, kind of going Jaden Daniels, kind of pointing that direction. So a lot of attention is being drawn his way, but I like the fact that he's supporting Jaden Daniels is the optimistic way I'm looking at it.
He did like a janky rondo reaction to the missed field goal at the end, I don't know, or the extra point at the end. I
I
don't know if you
saw that.
saw
I
that one
saw
or
that.
not, but
Yeah.
that's an interesting dude. That poor Cyberman is taking a kick in the dick today, and I feel bad for him because, like, yeah, they were brutal. Those 2 extra points were huge, but let's face it, it was like 10-9 going into the fourth quarter. I mean, it was gross. Those extra points didn't actually lose the game, but boy, he's having it worse than you are, Cakes.
Yeah, I feel bad for him, man. And I, you, I give kudos to this front office and the personnel staff. I think they've done a really good job of like putting the roster together. But like if he wasn't 100%, and I understand like you want him out there. He's like the leading kicker in the league when he went down with the injury. But if you have any doubt about him, any, I would just keep Zane Gonzalez out there and let Cyber get another week of rest. Bring him back for the Titans game. I mean, look at the way that they're resting Marshawn Lattimore. Like they're treating him with the kid gloves. And I know it's a little bit different a corner and a kicker, the way those guys are going to rehab and be ready for games. But even if he was 90 or 95% and Gonzalez is 100%, if I'm Peters and Quinn and all the decision makers, I'd have a long, hard decision about, hey, let's bring Cyber back for the Tennessee game or let him rest through the bye and we'll have him back for the Saints game. Like maybe he wasn't fully 100%, even if he's saying he was, because he didn't strike me as looking 100% in that game.
And Doug, one little kind of insider note. It's funny. I sit in section 109, row 3. 109, row 4 is Tyler Ott, the long snappers of his wife and his daughter were right behind me. And it was very, very awkward because it was a skipper. Tyler Ott had a bad snap to go back to Austin Seibert. I think Trustway, the man, he kind of recorrected it. And it was good enough to kick it through the upright, but it definitely was a skip. And you could hear like the tension behind us because like, oh, crap, Daddy messed up. So it's definitely a little awkward there.
I'll never understand what kind of person it takes to threaten a man for missing a kick in a football game because that dude really has been taking it on social media. I thought when George, you were there, I thought when Brian Robinson first got hurt, that was going to be it for him. Were you surprised he came back out? I mean, particularly when he went back into the locker room, I thought, well, he's done.
Yeah, absolutely. So when he got rolled up, I thought he tore his ACL. Like it's always hard for me because you guys have the TV angle, so maybe you guys saw it different from what I saw. I saw his
ankle. Yeah,
I know it was his ankle, but from my perspective, I saw his ankle get pushed down and his knee got twisted. I was like, oh crap, I think he tore his ACL. So I was worried about that. And then basically what ended up happening was, like I said, I sit by the players' tunnel. He went directly to the bench. They kind of checked him out on the sideline. And then I saw him lightly jog into the tunnel. I was like, oh, if he's jogging, he's going to be okay. And then eventually he came back out. I think they might have whatever, gave him some medication. He went back on the field for a couple plays. But, I love Brian Robinson. I think he's a very talented player. But, part of our conversation, fellas, I'm worried about him long term because he's a great player when available, but he's not really available all the time. So I think next year we do have to kind of start considering adding more to that running back room because Eckler looked really bad at the end of the game. He was coming off the sideline again.
He got concussed, right? What play was
bad?
He got concussed, and he was not from first person perspective. Walking into the tunnel, he was long gone. I looked in his eyes. I was like, "Oh my god!" I was actually worried about him. I was like,
when he suffered that collision, and then as soon as it happened, you saw guys like motioning to the trainers to the sidelines, like, hey, you guys better get out of here. Like this is pretty serious. And then when both teams are out on the field and they're kneeling, and it was good he was able to get up and leave with some assistance, but that's his second concussion he's been dealing with this season. I mean, there's no way he's going to be back for the Titans game. So just hope that he heals and he's okay, and that hopefully he's available at some point. But yeah, that was a scary situation. But yeah, like if you're Adam Peters, you're always going to be looking to add to this running back room. I love what Eckler has brought. I was surprised they didn't utilize him more after B-Rob went down, especially in the passing game. Like he had eight grabs in the last game. Like I feel like that's why he's out there. Like he can carry the ball some, sure, especially down by the goal line. The guy's got a nose for the end zone. Like if you're at the 5-yard line, by all means, RPO with him, do what you have to. But I would have given him 5 or 7 targets, especially with B-Rob out of the mix.
And he got 2.
Yeah, It's kind of a head scratcher that was his usage, especially with B-Rob clearly limited, only with 5 total carries in the game.
And George, you're right. I mean, Robinson is kind of like that pickup truck. He's got a little more juice than I think people realize, but they need a guy that's got real juice. And I think again, that 7-2 start, I think, made it easy to forget like where this roster's at. They can keep calling it a recalibration all they want to, but when you turn over 60% of the roster, most in the NFL, and it's going to be 60% again next year, George. I mean, this thing is just getting started. They need another good free agency period, and they're going to need another good draft because when you play, I thought it was particularly noticeable in that Eagles game, and even though they kind of had a shot there in that one, there is a big difference in the talent level. Like they obviously don't. People are going to hate to hear this. They don't have a wide receiver one either. Like I love Terry, and Terry's been great, and Terry I think is the perfect wide receiver too. But like he's not CeeDee Lamb. Like CeeDee Lamb is noticeable on the football field, and you have to account for him. So I think part of that 7-2 that got everybody way up in the clouds was that it made like people really thought Noah Brown, me including, Noah Brown was an actual number 2 and Terry was number 1. And that's just not it, right? Like
he may not be like Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill on his prime level, and CeeDee Lamb, like you mentioned, but he also has a target problem, and it's partly because the way the offense was humming in the first 7 or 8 games because it was so run centric. Even with a superior quarterback talent in Jaden Daniels, he's still not getting that CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, like super alpha. We're gonna target you 15 times, like what the Giants are doing with Malik Neighbors as a rookie.
Yeah,
like Terry never had that sort of treatment as far as that many balls going his way. And I think part of it obviously is just the trash heap of quarterbacks he's had to deal with leading up to Jaden Daniels. And now, like I mentioned, so run heavy, like he may only get 5 or 6 targets. And thankfully he's making the most of them. I love his talent. He may not be that super like top number 1 tier wideout, but I think he's nudging up against that sort of ceiling.
Well, it's not just he's not CeeDee Lamb, you know what I mean? Or that he's not Justin Jefferson. There are definitely levels to this thing, as they say. I know Cliff is getting killed for the Terry usage. And when Michael Phillips was on the show Friday, we did like some over-unders, and he was like, the over-under for Terry catches was 4.5. And he was like, they're going to force feed him the ball. You've got to pound the over on that. He got 5 catches. So, I mean, technically at the over, but they didn't force him. The boys from Ref the District put this out today. I thought it was interesting. Terry lining up almost exclusively on the left side in Cliff's offense. Okay. In 2020, DeAndre Hopkins lined up 89.6% of his snaps on the left side and was targeted 160 times for 115 catches and 1,407 yards. And Terry was kind of on that pace when they were humming at 7-2. So the notion that you have to move Terry around or you have to move a receiver around to get him targets just isn't true. For whatever reason, the last 3 games, they just haven't been finding a way to do it.
I think they figured it out, though, Doug. That's the issue. Like, I think watching the film and kind of breaking it down with Mark Bullock, I think they realized that Terry McLaurin is the only true option in Washington, the only explosive options they have, and they're taking it away. So what ended up happening with Philadelphia, they kind of had like a little triangle around him, like Mark Bullock called the Bermuda Triangle while covering him. Quinyon Mitchell played zone, took away the outside routes for him. They had a safety over top and a linebacker in the middle. They kind of isolate him and take him away and force Noah Brown and other wide receivers to beat them. And right now, that's the problem in Washington. We have one true alpha dog at wide receiver. We don't have any other superior threats or any explosive threats. Even Brian Robinson's a great player, but he's not a guy that's going to take the top off, right? So I think there's a fear there. So we'll see. I hope this offseason Washington sort of does what the Houston Texans did, go after, pursue a big free agent, Stephon Diggs, get a true wide receiver to complement Terry McLaurin, take some pressure off of him. I'm proud of Terry. I think he's having a really good breakout year. It's his career year. His most touchdown catches this year. He has almost 900 yards already in like 12 games, which is high for him. He's having a strong year, but I think all the pressure is falling on him, which is, if you're a defense, I'm going to take Terry away. I'm going to take Jaden Daniels running a game away. Then what's left? Zach Ertz, we're going to throw to him. It really isn't another threat besides that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. They have to. They should follow that Texans blueprint because you want to take advantage of what they've been searching for so long, and they finally have it. They have a star rookie quarterback on a rookie contract who's cheap, and now you can go out and splurge on a top wideout, or you can pick one high in the draft as well. Go out and make this surrounding cast for Jaden as good as possible over the next 2 to 3 years. And Peters knows that. I mean, he's well aware that he knows he needs that Noah Brown can't be his number 2 wide receiver. Noah Brown should be like most teams. This is no disrespect, like a number 3 or number 4 wide receiver. It's
absolutely.
There's value to that. He's just not a number 2 in the NFL.
That's right. And to me, that's like the room. They're all like one spot over. And again, that's right. It's not disrespectful. You're just giving a good eye to what you think is the problem. The other thing is Dante Fowler Jr. looked like a rookie for about 8 games. He was really explosive. Dorrance Armstrong has not been. I mean, Dorrance Armstrong was one of 2 guys they actually gave some money in contract years to in the offseason. They had 0 pass rush yesterday against a line that probably had a combined 25 starts in the NFL. Like, to me, if we're going to start talking about real problems, that was a real problem. If it wasn't for Frankie Louvu, they would have never sniffed the quarterback. And again, that was Cooper Rush, who, by the way, is like 4-1 or 5-1 against the Redskins. He's the new Joes. He just kills us.
It's crazy. Yeah, like Cooper Rush should not come into your stadium and just have all day to do what he wants. And like the Schoonmaker touchdown, like any NFL quarterback, I don't care. First, second, or third string can make that throw. I mean, there wasn't a burgundy jersey within 5 to 7 yards of him. The total throw in the end zone was nice. I'll give him credit for that. But look, Cooper Rush is like a 31 or 32-year-old career backup. Like he's the quintessential. If your starter goes down for a few games, you're fine with Cooper Rush stepping in to play 2, 3, maybe 4 games. If your starter goes down in week 4 or 5 and is out for the season, and Cooper Rush is playing for the rest of the season, your season is sunk. It's dead.
And that's why the loss yesterday was so painful, because that's the team we expected to see, was this team that's packed it up and kept it moving on.
Right.
Cooper Rush, by the way, 24 for 32, 247 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions.
Right. I think he was pressured 4 times throughout the game. And that even seems high. Like I can't recall the 4 times he was actually pressured.
And every time they would get some pressure, we'd peel off because I think they were so excited about trying to hit that kid, and they just release a guy underneath him. He'd pick up 10 yards on a little dump off pass. The defense looked totally confused. Also, George, we've been talking for about a week and a half now, 2 weeks, ever since they got Marshawn Lattimore, about what the room will look like when he is healthy and ready to play. Benjamin St. Juste, the lowest percentage of snaps since his rookie year. I think that says all about what will happen. I assumed he'd stay outside. Seems like they would just leave Sam still outside for the rest of this year. And Igbenogany, who I think the 2 of them played like 70% of the snaps yesterday, with Sam was still getting all of them.
Yeah,
can't tackle. They're just force feeding a situation, because that, again, another room that will look totally different next year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a Band-Aid. Basically, I think they're just trying to survive this year. I think they're working with the talent they've had accumulated over the past couple of years. They know there needs improvement. They need more improvement in the wide receiver room, cornerback room. I think both of those are priority 1 and 2, in my opinion, going into the season, off season as well. Definitely pass rush, but there definitely is an area of growth there. Cakes, question for you, man. So I know one of the best part about your job is you get to outsource and talk to so many people, right? I'm curious. The offenses look horrendous the past 3-4 weeks, especially this last week. I think it was the worst of the season going into this Cowboys game. I'm curious, how do you distribute the blame? Like, let's say you have like 100 chips. How would you break it down in regard to Kingsbury's play calling, Jane Daniels' regression, injuries, some sort of outside factor that you have? How do you break it down in your opinion?
If I have to do a blame pie,
blame pie. That's what you call.
You know what? I'll carve up 50% of the blame pie to Kingsbury and the way the offense is being run. I would say maybe 30% to Jaden, kind of regressing back a little bit, and the other 20 I would give to the offensive line. Not necessarily just because they're playing subpar. It's just they've been banged up, and they're shuttling in new pieces every week. They haven't been able to maintain a cohesive unit there. And we talk about this in the Junkies today. Like I didn't really want to believe that the Cliff offense just all of a sudden goes stale, or maybe teams catch up and he's not able to pivot. He's not able to adapt, but maybe there is something to that. Maybe it's just teams, the first go around or the first 7 or 8 games, it throws them off. And then second half of the season, they get some more tape on him and maybe his tendencies, they just pick up on them, and maybe he's just slow to react. I mean,
sorry to interrupt you. Are you fully confident in him next year, or are you still hitched to the Kingsbury
I mean,
wagon?
I need to see more. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not fully sold. I need to see how he handles this adversity. I need to see how he attacks a pretty good Titans defense. I need to see what he does coming out of the bye week for the last real stretch run for the playoff push.
Yeah.
But like the first 7 or 8 weeks, people are like, "Oh, Cliff,
awesome.
How are we going to live without Cliff after these first 7 or 8 weeks?" And now it's Cliff's on, as EB likes to put it, he's on EB's double secret probation list. Like he's back under the microscope. And you know what? Like on the other side, I'm sorry, Joe Witt's under the microscope too. If you can't find a way to bring pressure against Cooper Rush in a home division game and make him feel uncomfortable, you have to be under the microscope too. Like it's not just Cliff, and the special team Izzo's got to be under it too for the Cavante Turpin kick return, like all of it.
And they wanted him to return.
Good. They've been good up till yesterday, but
I agree.
You can't let Turpin, as fast as he is, like that's one where you should maybe be like, "Hey, Austin, you might need to give this one a little bit extra juice and get kick it out of the end zone. Don't let a return happen here."
Dan said something interesting, basically something to the effect of people don't realize how hard it is to kick it out of the back of the end zone, which kind of like was a double wink, like maybe his legs not strong enough. I think a lot of it has more to do with what I like to call coaching arrogance. I think they wanted to put the ball on the 1 yard line and have him run it back, and they have been very effective at doing that. That's I give them credit for trying to pick up those 5, 6, 7 hidden yards. A lot of that comes in the special team game. They're very good at that at the end of halves kind of thing, which was surprising. They gave up that big play at the end of the half to give the Cowboys that field goal. But it wasn't necessary to kick the ball to the fastest man in the NFL.
Right.
And he hit that Madden spin move on him and was off to the races. And it was like, you have got to be kidding me. And I just think that they were overly confident and made a decision that wasn't necessary.
Yeah, I'm not going to, like you said, I'm not going to kick it to the fastest guy in the field with the game hanging in the balance. Like,
no,
I'm going to let the backup quarterback start with the ball. I'm going to let, I'm going to let that be the way we're going to start this drive instead of us, trying to chase Cavante Turpin 90 plus yards down the field.
I see Deluxe there says there were 2 blocks in the back on that kickoff return. I don't know if you guys saw the post from Grant Paulson, but it definitely that hole opens up because they hit the guy. I forget who it was now, but hit him in the back.
I think Sanders still, I think.
It is what it is. Those things happen. The officiating's been terrible across the league this year. They got to figure out some way to handle that. To me, again, when they go back and look at this thing, it was 10-9 going into the fourth quarter. The fact that B-Rob had 8 carries for 13 yards, that to me, that was the plan. And if Cliff deserves any consternation today, from me, it'll be that they needed to pivot at halftime. The run game wasn't work. Let's open up, and as EB said, let Jaden cook. And they're not. I don't know why Cliff has decided to kind of keep him under wraps a little bit. It feels like the last couple of weeks, George. I got it when the ribs were hurt and he wasn't feeling right, but I don't know. He looked healthy to me. I mean, he ran for 74 yards today. It didn't look like he was slower than normal. He's getting zip on the fastball better than he was, which I think is a part of the ribs getting healthy. So why Cliff kind of still feels like he's protecting him here, I'm not sure I understand it.
It was frustrating. I'm not gonna lie. Watching it in person, I was actually we talked offline, Doug. I was bored in the first quarter. I was frustrated in the second quarter. I was like, "What is going on?" Like we were running the ball. B Rob got hurt. We were running the ball with Eckler up into the middle of the gut of their defense, not getting any yards. It was very predictable. A lot of their passes were horizontal, no vertical shots. It was a celebration when we got a first down. I think going into the end of the third quarter, we had less than 100 yards passing going into the third quarter. It was awful. And I was like, take a shot. Like just throw it down to McLaurin. In this league, 50% of the time it's a PI anyway. Just flip the field, just get the ball downfield. I know what was going on there, but I think, Kicks kind of alluded to it. I think it's the offensive line. I think there's no protection. I believe Wiley went out for pretty early on in the game. I think there was Trent Scott was in the game, and therefore they were getting pressure. But like
they moved Micah Parsons into the D tackle role, and he destroyed that offensive line.
Yeah,
I mean, he gave them everything they could handle.
Yes,
yeah, but that's exactly where Cliff has to pivot. Like if Mike is turning into that game wrecker, which he did nothing the week before. Maybe it was just him like getting healthy, and then he got healthy against the Commanders. When you see he's doing that, when you see he's on, like that's when Cliff's got to be like, hey, maybe we'll get Eckler into space. Maybe let's get Eckler into space, and it doesn't have to be a long developing play. It can be a pass out to the flat. It can be where he lines up wide as in the slot. It's something to throw off the scent for Parsons in that defense, who was getting in on Jaden and disrupting the flow of the offense. It was slow for that to happen, to see them kind of deal with that.
And you mentioned when we're giving Cliff all the business, the Joe Witt deserves it too. Rico Dowdle had 86 yards yesterday. Like that has been the Commanders' problem for like 3 years now, and continues to be. You say all you want to about the secondary, and I understand people will say, well, they work hand in hand and you can't trust the secondary. Yeah, I get that. But if you can't stop Rico Dowdle from getting 5 yards of carry straight up the middle of your defense, like what are we doing here? Like you got it. John's out, but you've got a second round pick that everybody thought was going to be a first round pick. And you got a man making $25 million a year right next to him. Like the fact that their run defense is a big problem this year. I mean, give me a break.
And it doesn't get any easier. Tony Pollard went for over 100 and a touchdown in Titans win over the Texans. And coming out of the bye, they have to deal with Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill.
Yep.
I mean, those guys could run for 250 total yards against this defense.
And they still got the way they looked yesterday. Here too. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing, and they just don't have the personnel to shore it up this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be another cycle of good free agency signings, another solid draft from Adam Peters, and hopefully a lot of these issues are, if not rectified, improved. They should be improved in year two, after you see another wave of his signings and more of Ron's guys showing the exit. There aren't that many Ron guys left. But
there are not.
Yeah, there aren't that many.
They escort them out in a hurry.
Yeah.
The yesterday's game. I'm just curious. Kind of final thoughts here. Yesterday's game was just one of those games that you get every year, or it was a failure on the Commanders to not seize an opportunity.
I think it was the latter. I think it was you had the opportunity yesterday. Speaking for the Commanders, you had the opportunity to kill shot the Dallas Cowboys and officially, I mean, their season's over anyway, but to really demoralize them, just, put up 30 some points on them, get out to a big halftime lead, and just have those dudes ready for the offseason, because that's basically what those guys are looking at this point. And the game just went sideways. It was weird. It got away from them. Just the highs and lows of that last, Terry, the elation of him, nabbing the 86-yarder and weaving his way through the defense. And then, we're watching the extra point lineup, and my son was watching with me in the basement. He's like, we got to make this extra point. And I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, it's an extra point. It's an extra, even though the extra point is tougher now than it was whenever they changed the rule 5 or 6 years ago. It's still a 33-yarder. It should be a layup for these guys. And again, my spidey sense is off, because I just figured he's going to put it through the uprights. You get to overtime. And by the way, I never thought Dan Quinn should go for 2. All these internet tough guys and radio tough guys who are like, yeah, of course he goes for 2. Like JP is like a big, yeah, you should go for 2. I'm like, going for 2 is like 30%. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, if you're on the road against a superior opponent,
that's it right there.
Like, and I referenced this earlier today. A couple years, was it last year when the Commanders were in Philly,
right?
And Ron settled for the field goal to go to the extra point to go to overtime instead of going for 2. That's when you go for 2.
That's right.
You don't go for 2 at home against a team where you're a 10.5 point favorite against. Like, even though the game hasn't gone the way you want it to, you don't panic and all of a sudden lose your mind and say, we're going to go for 2 here instead of go for 1 and play for overtime.
There's only been 4 real quick, George. There's only been 4 double-digit teams this year. They all won except for this one.
Right.
And I was going to say, Kicks, you're a good man, because my spidey sense was going the opposite direction. I was in the stadium. I was like, this is the freaking the crowd is going crazy. I was so pumped up. I was like, watch, we're going to miss this freaking extra point. That's what the Commanders do. And we freaking miss an extra point. It's just devastating. And going back to your original question, Doug, this game was supposed to be the get-right game for Washington. We're supposed to go out there, beat the Cowboys, get our season back on track. Instead, unfortunately, the Cowboys stole a win. They actually beat us today, but they stole the win. They shouldn't have won that game. And unfortunately, now they have that antagonism. They're going to make fun of us and just kind of ride us for a couple of weeks. It's very frustrating. And being a part of this rivalry my entire life, I'm upset with it. It's just a crappy outcome of the game.
But now we get to see like how resilient is this team? Are they able to gather themselves? Are they able to come out with a solid performance against? Honestly, I know I've been hyping up the Titans, but I feel like they're a little bit better than the record that they're bringing in here. They're 3-8, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Something like that. I can look it up.
They're 3-8. Look, they're going nowhere. But look, they're trying to figure out, is Will Levis our guy? And
he's been good the last couple games.
He has, but he's gotten sacked a ton. Like I said this on the air, like a huge red flag in this upcoming game. If this Commanders team can't sack Will Levis 3 times, 3 times is the magic number.
Okay.
That's like he's been sacked 20 times in 3 games. Like he's begging you to sack him. He's giving the ball. He's throwing pick sixes with shocking regularity. Like this defense have to look more aggressive, and they have to get some momentum from those plays that Will Levis is going to make that are in your favor. Like they have to capitalize on those this upcoming week. Get to 8-5 and go into the bye with some momentum. They can't squander these last 2 games at home heading into the bye. Got this. It's not a must win, but it's a pretty close to a must win heading into the bye week, in my opinion.
I agree.
Cakes, I was looking at your at the Classic this last weekend, or was it this last week? How did it go, and when's the next one?
Thanks, man. We had a second edition of the Cakes Classic at MGM National Harbor this past Wednesday. It was part of the BetMGM. BetMGM Poker had a quick weekend event over at MGM National Harbor. I wasn't able to play in the main event, but I played in my event on Wednesday night. We had 79 entries. It was a 20K guarantee. I think we wound up giving away like 22 grand or so total. And the next one is the first Wednesday in December, whatever that date is. I don't have that off the top of my head, but anybody wants to come out first Wednesday of every month is the Cakes Classic at MGM National Harbor. It's always a fun time. And I hope some of you sickos and degens come out and play some cards.
Absolutely. Cakes, always a blast to have you on, buddy. When I scheduled this with you, I thought for sure we'd be jumping up and down for a victory over the Cowboys today. But such is life. Still always a pleasure to have you on. Hey,
unlike Cliff Kingsbury, we can adapt.
Yes.
I'm adaptable. This guy's adaptable right here, as are you. So we'll see. Hopefully the next time I'm on, we will be breaking down a win, whenever that is.
That's right. Sounds good, buddy. Thanks.
All right, guys. Thanks again, man.